Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a close look at a pretty interesting audio report.
Yeah, this one's called No More Mr. Nice Donald. Trump just issued an ultimatum for Chicago that will save the city. Quite the title.
It is. It's presented by Gary Franchi for Liberty Writers News, and they cite Danny Gold.
Mm-hmm.
So our goal here, our mission, if you like, is to really unpack what this specific report is claiming
Right.
about former President Trump and ultimatum to Chicago, this dire situation it paints.
And what the source sees as the big implications of the federal government stepping into a major city like that.
Exactly. So just to be clear up front.
Yeah, this report definitely has a, shall I say, specific viewpoint on Chicago's problems and how to fix them.
Right. So we're focusing purely on extracting the facts and the perspective as presented in this source. That's key.
Absolutely. Understanding their narrative.
Okay, so let's start with the context the source gives for why Trump would even, intervene.
Well, the report kind of reminds us of Trump's campaign talk.
Yeah, it mentions him saying he'd be a president of all Americans, wanting to fix inner cities, and specifically saying he's saved Chicago.
And the source frames this latest move, or this reported move, as him following through on that.
Driven by this idea that Americans should be safe within our own borders. It even mentions an epic tweet from him to show he's serious.
Right, setting the stage for action.
And then it lays out this really grim picture of Chicago. The stats are, well, they're presented as shocking.
They use terms like Chirac and even a war zone.
Yeah, war zone. And it says, at the time the report was made, there had been 228 shootings. Just bang, right there.
Gives you that immediate sense of crisis they're aiming for.
Then it zooms out to the previous year, saying it was one of the deadliest years in the city's history.
And it throws out numbers. What were they?
762 murders, 3,550 shooting incidents, and 4,331 shooting victims for just that 1 year.
Wow. And then comes that really intense comparison.
Oh, yeah. It claims there are more murders in Chicago than there are, like, in the Middle East, okay, of our own soldiers.
Which is, a really stark way to frame it. Clearly designed to equate the city's violence with, active combat fatalities.
Definitely meant to shock.
Yeah.
And the source uses all this to point fingers, right?
Absolutely. It argues that the mayor at the time, Rahm Emanuel,
Who they make sure to identify as Obama's former chief of staff.
right, that he had, and I'm quoting the source here, lost all control of the city, and then adds completely lost it.
So from this source's perspective, the local leadership failed, creating a vacuum that needed federal action.
Precisely. That's the justification laid out.
Okay, so that's the backdrop. Now, the ultimatum itself.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly does the report claim Trump said or did?
It's pretty blunt in the report. It says Trump's message to Emanuel was basically, look, we're going to bring the feds in, Rahm, if you can't get your city together.
Just like that. Get your city together.
Yep. And what's interesting is how the source immediately links this specific threat to Trump's wider actions at the time.
How so?
It points out he'd also just signed executive orders, the ones about building the wall and the travel ban from certain countries.
Okay, so the source is suggesting this is all part of a pattern.
Exactly. It frames it as a consistent, tough stance on safety and national security, connecting Chicago to these other big federal power moves.
And the source also spends time on Chicago's, political identity, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. It labels it an anti-gun Democratic stronghold.
And make sure to mention it's where Obama rose to power, again linking it to Emanuel.
Right. Painting this political picture is clearly important to the source's narrative about why this federal intervention might be happening. It adds another layer.
So bringing the feds in, what does the source think that actually means? Do they get specific?
Well, they speculate a bit. The report asks if it might be something pretty crazy, like bringing in the National Guard. But then it kind of offers its own take, suggesting it's most likely the FBI just, sniffing around.
Sniffing around.
Yeah, and acting as, quote, a thorn in Rahm Emanuel's side.
So maybe more about political pressure or investigation than, troops on the streets, according to this source.
That seems to be the interpretation the source leans towards, yeah.
Yeah.
Making life difficult for the mayor.
And the report really emphasizes the bad blood, doesn't it? The personal animosity.
It absolutely does. States flat out, Rahm Emanuel hates Donald Trump.
And again reminds the listener that Emanuel was a foot soldier for Obama for many years. That connection keeps coming up.
It does, and that leads the source to float this theory.
What theory?
That the whole thing could be some, sick retribution against the last holdout of Obama, which would be Chicago.
So not just policy, but maybe political payback. That's the source's angle.
That's the interpretation they put forward, yeah. Suggesting there's a deeper, perhaps more personal political game happening beneath the surface?
And all this seems to build towards one specific flashpoint mentioned in the report.
Right, the whole sanctuary city issue.
Chicago's policy of limiting cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. How does the source describe that conflict?
It quotes Emmanuel as being defiant, saying something like, I'm going to do whatever I want, keep Chicago sanctuary city. That's the stance the report attributes to him.
Okay, pure defiance, according to the source.
And then it presents Trump's reported comeback.
Which was?
Essentially, well, guess what? I'm the president now.
Pulling rank.
Exactly. Followed by, we're going to send the feds in. We're going to take a look at what you're doing over there,
So the report frames it as this direct showdown. Local defiance met with presidential assertion of power.
That's the core confrontation highlighted in the source's narrative, yes.
Okay. Well, that pretty much covers the main points of this Liberty Writers news report.
Yeah, we've walked through how it depicts the situation in Chicago as dire.
Really dire, yeah. Using those stats and that war zone language.
And then how it presents this ultimatum from Trump as a bold federal response.
Driven by, according to the source, a mix of policy concerns and maybe some political friction.
Or even, as the source speculates, retribution.
Right. And the report itself kind of ends on a cliffhanger, doesn't it?
It does, just as they'll keep an eye on this action and see how it pans out.
So wrapping up our deep dive here, we've really focused on unpacking one specific source's perspective.
And it's a perspective that touches on some really critical themes, doesn't it? Urban crises, the reach of federal power, political conflict.
Definitely. It brings up these big questions about who's in charge when a city faces severe challenges.
Right.
Where's the line between local control and federal intervention?
Exactly. And, thinking about this specific report and the scenario it describes, it really makes you consider that core tension. Local autonomy versus federal power in a crisis. What do you think are the potential long-term ripple effects if scenarios like this play out more often? How might it change the whole dynamic between cities and the federal government down the road?
That's a really interesting thought to leave our listeners with. Something to definitely mull over.